On our third wedding anniversary, Chu Yan brought home the younger sister of his deceased brother to take care of. I didn't agree. Does your so-called care necessarily mean that she has to live in our house? Chu Yan said I was heartless. Despite my objection, he left Chen Nanyue behind. I couldn't bear it. I quarreled with him again and fell into Chen Nanyue's trap. It wasn't until Chen Nanyue and I were kidnapped at the same time, and Chu Yan only saved her, that I realized that Chu Yan, who had once said he only loved me, had already changed his heart. After being reborn, I no longer longed for Chu Yan's love. When he brought Chen Nanyue home, I smiled and said, sure. 1. I waited in the restaurant until 10 o'clock. When the waiter reminded me that the restaurant was about to close, I received a message on my phone. It was from Chu Yan. Yu, I'm waiting for you at home. The moment I saw the message, my fingers curled up suddenly, then they kept trembling, my eyes turned red. I was reborn. On the night of my third wedding anniversary with Chu Yan, to celebrate, Chu Yan booked the entire restaurant and decorated it carefully. I attended in full dress, but Chu Yan didn't come. His good brother Chen Rui had a sudden accident and passed away. Before he died, he asked Chu Yan to take good care of his younger sister, Chen Nanyue. Chu Yan took it very seriously. He brought Chen Nanyue home that night. Even the explanation was exactly the same as in my previous life. Nanyue has no family left. I can't just ignore her. How did I respond to Chu Yan in my previous life? I opposed and accused him hysterically. Does your so-called care necessarily mean that she has to live in our house? We are husband and wife. Why don't you respect my thoughts? In response to me, there were only Chen Nanyue's aggrieved tears and Chu Yan's cold rebuke. Qing Yu, you're really heartless. Despite my objection, he let Chen Nanyue stay in the house. Later, because of Chen Nanyue, Chu Yan and I had countless quarrels and misunderstandings. I tried every means to bring back the Chu Yan who loved me, but compared with the delicate and pitiful Chen Nanyue, my accusations and grievances all turned into vexatious behavior in Chu Yan's eyes. Chen Nanyue threw away the kitten that I had raised for 2 years, and Chu Yan couldn't bear to scold her even once. When Chen Nanyue and I were kidnapped together, Chu Yan didn't hesitate to abandon me and save her. So in this life, when facing the serious-looking Chu Yan and Chen Nanyue, who was hiding behind him and crying aggrievedly, I just smiled slightly. Sure, since you've decided, let her stay. Chu Yan's pupils shrank, and he was skeptical. Yu, do you really agree? I turned my head and smiled. She's the younger sister of your good brother. It's right for you to take care of her. I'm your wife. I believe you have a sense of propriety, so why should I refuse? Chu Yan opened his mouth but didn't say anything. I instructed the housekeeper to clean up the guest room on the first floor for Chen Nanyue. In my previous life, after having a big quarrel with me, Chu Yan deliberately went against me and let Chen Nanyue live on the second floor. Since opposition is ineffective, then I'll take the initiative. Chu Yan feels guilty towards me and won't refute me at this time. 2. That night, I didn't let Chu Yan sleep with me. He thought I was throwing a tantrum and said some harsh words. Only after hearing my coughing did he remember the fact that I had sat alone in the cold wind of the open-air restaurant for a whole night. Then, feeling guilty, he instructed the housekeeper to prepare cold medicine for me. He promised repeatedly that he wouldn't stand me up again in the future. I responded listlessly with an Chu Yan's movements were stiff, but he didn't say anything more. After tucking the quilt in for me, he tiptoed to the guest room next door. Finally, there was peace. I turned over. The next second, I hugged Xiaoguai and fell asleep. It wasn't because of the cold, it was because before I died in my previous life, I was tied up in a cold factory building for a full 2 days. I didn't dare to sleep or cry. My nerves had been tense for too long, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I slept especially soundly this time. I didn't wake up until almost noon the next day. Chen Nanyue was sitting on the sofa in the living room packing her luggage. When she heard me coming downstairs, she just looked up at me, but she didn't take the initiative to greet me. Instead, she continued to pack her clothes methodically and even instructed the housekeeper to make her a cup of coffee. She acted like the mistress of the house. In my previous life, when faced with her provocation, I was like a balloon that would explode at the slightest touch and quarreled with her. During the argument, she deliberately fell to the ground, and Chu Yan, who happened to come home to get some documents, saw it. He asked me to apologize without asking the cause and effect. Naturally, I refused. As a result, Chu Yan ignored me for half a month. Now, facing her rather clumsy little trick, I was no longer angry. I ignored her and walked into the dining room. Without my instruction, the housekeeper took the initiative to bring breakfast. It was obvious who the mistress of the house was. Chen Nanue blushed with anger. She threw her luggage around, making cracking noises. The housekeeper frowned. He had just taken a step in that direction when I stopped him with a glance. Amid Chen Nanue's protesting voice, I happily finished the first warm meal after being reborn. Xiaoguai stretched and moved to my feet, meowing. I picked it up and held it in my arms, looking at the warm autumn sunlight. It was really comfortable. 3. Chu Yan should have instructed the housekeeper a long time ago, so as soon as I finished my breakfast, the housekeeper opened the door and let the staff in. She finally managed to pack up the things that Chen Nanue had left in the living room and send them back to her room as she wished. Then she instructed the staff to place Chu Yan's gifts one by one in the living room: top luxury jewelry, high-end customized dresses, limited edition handbags, the latest sports cars. There were a dazzling array of things, all anniversary gifts that Chu Yan had given me out of guilt. I didn't feel much about it, but Chen Nanue was jealous. Sister Qingyu, you're really lucky to be able to marry Brother Yan. You can enjoy a luxurious life without having to do anything. I was silent for a moment and corrected her expressionlessly. No, you should envy my good birth. After all, this is how I lived before I married Chu Yan. Chen Nanue's eyes turned red instantly. She was an illegitimate daughter of the Chen family. When she was brought back to the Chen family had already gone bankrupt. She didn't enjoy any of the glory and wealth at all, so what she cared most about was her own background. But my brother told me that girls must be independent and have their own careers. I've always remembered my brother's words and never dared to slack off for a moment. Chen Nanue finally couldn't help it and showed her weak and scheming demeanor. She wanted to provoke me, but I just lifted my eyelids and glanced at her faintly, then nodded. That's good, then you should work harder. Seeing that I was indifferent, Chen Nanue was furious. When she got up, she deliberately stepped on Xiaoguai's tail. It was so scared that it jumped up suddenly and knocked over the gift box that I had just opened. A clear sound rang out. I lowered my eyes. I saw the ruby jade pendant that had broken into 2 pieces on the floor. 4. When she saw the broken jade, Chen Nanue immediately became nervous. I didn't mean to. Halfway through her words, when she caught sight of the figure entering the living room, Chen Nanue suddenly fell onto the sofa. Ouch! This scene, as seen by Chu Yan who had just entered the door, seemed as if I had deliberately pushed her down. He immediately ran over to help her up and sternly questioned me. What did you do? Before the words were even out, he saw the broken jade on the floor and suddenly changed his expression. How did this happen? Seeing that he was in a bad mood, Chen Nanue began to pretend to be aggrieved and, it wasn't me. Xiaoguai just jumped up and broke it. Sister Qingyu misunderstood me just now. Her eyes were wet. She seemed aggrieved, but in fact, there was all sorts of calculation in them. Why don't I compensate Sister Qingyu with a piece of jade? My brother left me some money, and I should be able to afford it. But Chen Nanue didn't know that this ruby jade pendant wasn't bought. It was carved by Chu Yan himself. In the first year of our marriage, Chu Yan had a car accident by accident. He stayed in the ICU for a whole week. After all medical means were used, the experts said that he could only wake up relying on his own will. I, who had never believed in fate, went alone to the temple to ask for a safety amulet for him. The 700 steps in the snowy weather almost made me lose feeling in my hands and feet. Fortunately, Chu Yan woke up the night he put on the safety amulet, but I fell seriously ill from then on. I developed a root cause of being afraid of the cold. Chu Yan felt extremely sorry. Later, he heard that carving a ruby jade pendant by hand could ensure safety. So he found a piece of jade and began to carve it carefully. But in my previous life, after Chen Nanue was scared into a coma by a flasher at school, to soothe her, Chu Yan gave her that jade pendant full of vows. Later, he always stood behind Chen Nanue and protected her. I, who had lost his love and protection, eventually ended up alone and was buried in the wilderness, unexpectedly. After being reborn, Chu Yan actually gave me the ruby jade pendant in advance out of guilt. Unfortunately, it broke before I could even touch it. It was as if it was destined by heaven. Chu Yan and I could only stand at both ends of the balance. We couldn't be together. 5. Amid Chen Nanue's continuous explanations, Chu Yan silently picked up the broken jade. After looking at it in the palm of his hand for a while, he instructed Chen Nanue to go back to her room first. I knew that he didn't intend to pursue the matter. Forget it, if it's broken, it's broken, I'll carve another one for you. I'll use a piece of jade with a better texture than this one, okay. His overly indifferent tone made me show an incredulous expression. Chu Yan, this was carved by you for me. It was Chen Nanyue who broke it. How can you say something like, if it's broken, it's broken? He frowned slightly and said helplessly, Yu, she just lost her family member and lacks a sense of security. Can't you be more understanding? Then who will understand me? My chest heaved violently. My breathing became uncontrollably rapid. Chu Yan, you said that you carved the jade pendant for me to ensure my safety. I've been waiting for 2 years. How much longer do you want me to wait? Chen Nanyue was brought back by you. You believe everything she says. And you feel sorry for her even if she gets a little hurt. But she's just your brother's sister. I'm your wife. Why do you always wrong me and forgive her? What did I do wrong that deserves you treating me like this? Chu Yan. The jade is broken. It can't protect me anymore. Can I still believe in you and rely on you? After the words fell, my eyes were already filled with tears. An expression of endless regret flashed across Chu Yan's face. He hugged me tightly and coaxed me in a low voice. Of course you can believe in me. I'll always protect you, Yu. You know how much I love you. In Chu Yan's arms, I gradually opened my eyes, my breathing calmed down, and my tears had dried up. I met Chen Nanyue's vicious and jealous gaze in the distance. I curled my lips slightly. Chu Yan used to love me, but after Chen Nanyue appeared, that love gradually changed. In the past, I always couldn't figure out why Chu Yan would change his heart. Now I don't want to pursue it anymore. A man who has changed his heart, even if it's just a little bit, will be like a rotten apple inside. In the end, he will be extremely ugly. I will abandon Chu Yan when he loves me the most and feels the most guilty towards me. Everything that Chen Nanyue has tried so hard to get will be destroyed by me. Neither the scumbag nor the mistress deserves to be forgiven. 6. Out of guilt, Chu Yan has been treating me very well recently. He has shown meticulous care and protection, as if we were back in the period of our passionate love. But this kind of intimacy will automatically give way when Chen Nanyue appears. At lunch, Chen Nanyue held a few grains of rice and hesitated to speak. I pretended not to see it, but Chu Yan couldn't help but feel sorry for her. What's wrong? Chen Nanyue was like a little rabbit. After taking a look at me, she retracted her neck and shook her head vigorously. It's nothing. As if I had bullied her. Chu Yan looked unhappy. Just say it if you have something to say. You don't have to worry about it. Only then did Chen Nanyue put down her chopsticks and look at Chu Yan expectantly. Brother Yan, I'm going to participate in a competition next month. So I brought the easel back and will practice painting hard every day, but the room on the first floor is too cold. My hands are so frozen that I can't hold the paintbrush properly. My hand that was picking up food froze. It turned out that no matter what I did, important things would still happen. The room where Chen Nanyue was on the first floor faced north. It was indeed not as warm as the second floor in autumn and winter. But there were only 3 rooms on the second floor, the master bedroom, the study, and the lounge exclusive to me. I'm afraid of the cold. Chu Yan specially left that room for me. Inside, there was a customized sofa for me, a large screen, Shabwise cat climbing frame, a toy box, and a jewelry display cabinet covering the whole wall. If Chen Nanyue lived on the second floor, I would have to make room. I didn't respond. Chu Yan hesitated for a long time. I'll ask the housekeeper to add a heater for you. I've tried both the heater and the air conditioner. They will make the room too dry, and the paint will dry up. Seeing that Chu Yan was still hesitating, Chen Nanyue lowered her head again. Brother Yan, I'd better move back to the dormitory. The art studio at school is big and has a constant temperature system. I don't want to trouble you and Sister Qingyu. These words completely reminded Chu Yan of his promise to his deceased brother. He put down his chopsticks, sat up straight, and looked at me. Yu, give up the lounge. After this winter passes, I'll have someone lay floor heating in Nanyue's room and then let her move back. I was a bit dazed, but Chu Yan, I'm also afraid of the cold. Chu Yan frowned and looked somewhat impatient. It's just for 1 winter, you can endure it. When you're cold, you can go to the greenhouse on the 3rd floor or bask in the sun on the balcony of the bedroom. Chen Rui said that Nanyue was bullied at school, and I can't let her go back to school, although I had already guessed that he would do this, but when it actually happened, I still felt disgusted and uncomfortable. Chu Yan already had Chen Nanyue in his heart and eyes. He didn't care at all that I would also be cold and get sick. I took a deep breath and tried my best to soften my voice. Okay. Then move. 7. Chen Nanyue doesn't like small animals. In my previous life, not long after she moved into the 2nd floor, She deliberately opened the window and let Xiaoguai go. She pretended not to know about it all day long. It wasn't until I got home at night and couldn't find Xiaoguai that I checked the surveillance and found that it had entered Chen Nanyue's room and never came out again. Only after I questioned her repeatedly did Chen Nanyue cry and say sorry. I just accidentally didn't close the window. I didn't expect it to get lost. I didn't have time to pay attention to Chen Nanyue and immediately went out to look for the cat. Chu Yan accompanied me to look for it all night. It wasn't until early the next morning that we found its cold body on the road next to the villa area. After returning to the villa, I beat and scolded Chen Nanyue like crazy. She hid behind Chu Yan, crying pitifully. Chu Yan started to protect her. Later, he pushed me away impatiently. Enough, the cat is already dead. It's no use beating and scolding her anymore. I looked at Chu Yan in disbelief. I couldn't understand how he could say such cold words when he had raised Xiaoguai with me for 2 years, but he didn't blame Chen Nanyue at all. Only now did I realize that since he didn't even care about me, how could he care about a cat? I didn't dare to take the risk. So that afternoon, I sent Xiaoguai to Qingfan's house. Qingfan is my parents' adopted son. Now he is the person in charge of the Qing Corporation. When I showed up carrying 2 big bags of pet supplies, he looked worried. Did you two have a fight? Even if you had a fight, it shouldn't be you who runs away from home, right? I sighed. We didn't have a fight, but I'm going to get a divorce. 8. Did Chu Yan hit you? Qingfan suddenly raised his voice, scaring Xiaoguai, which had just poked its head out, back into the carrier. No, brother. While soothing Xiaoguai, I briefly told him the key points about Chen Nanyue. I was definitely going to get a divorce. It's just that there are many interests involved between the Qing and Chu companies, and getting a divorce is not an easy thing. Since I was reborn, I have been preparing the procedures and documents for the divorce, trying my best to minimize the losses to the Qing Corporation. I came to see Qingfan today to ask him to be prepared in advance. After listening to me, Qingfan's face turned cold. You don't have to wrong yourself for the company. I'll back you up. Get a divorce, and do it as soon as possible. Looking at Qingfan's cold and stern side profile, I felt a complex mix of emotions in my heart. Suddenly, I hugged his arm. Thank you, brother. Qingfan stiffened for a moment, and then he smiled and patted my head. There's no need to thank me. Leaning against Qingfan's shoulder, I wiped away my tears when he couldn't see. In my previous life, after I was kidnapped, Chu Yan refused to save me. Nanyue only has me. You still have Qingfan, and he will save you. But Qingfan had a car accident on the way to save me. I watched helplessly as his car fell off a cliff, and his life or death was unknown. At that moment, my remaining will to live was shattered. Even when the dagger pierced my chest, I didn't feel any pain. Since God has given me a chance to start over, I will never let the old things happen again. I not only want to save myself, I also want to save Qingfan. 9. A month later, Chen Nanyue's painting won an award. She gave the painting to Chu Yan. She also asked him to hang it in the study so that he could see her achievement every day. Chu Yan looked at her with doting eyes and readily agreed. A week later, when Chen Nanyue came back with the painting, I was just about to go out. When we passed each other on the stairs, she suddenly spoke. You clearly see that Brother Yan doesn't like you anymore. Why don't you leave him? Chen Nanyue in front of me had a vicious look in her eyes. Where was the innocent and lively appearance of a girl? I didn't show much emotion and looked straight into her eyes. Since you like Chu Yan, why don't you dare to confess your love? Are you afraid that others will scold you for being a mistress? The one who is not loved is the mistress. Chen Nanyue rolled her eyes recklessly and provocatively glanced at my belly. You can't have children anymore. Brother Yan won't be with you for the rest of his life. You'd better leave voluntarily and don't be so oblivious and annoying. My eyes darkened. I did leave a root cause of illness when I went to ask for a safety amulet for Chu Yan that winter. The doctor said that my body had been affected by the cold and needed to be well nourished, otherwise it would be difficult to conceive. Over the years, I have never stopped taking medicine for conditioning, but I still haven't gotten pregnant. Chu Yan has never complained to me. I didn't know that he minded it so much, and he even told my privacy to Chen Nanyue as a joke. I took a deep breath, but I couldn't hold back my anger anymore. I simply raised my foot and kicked Chen Nanyue's painting down the stairs. The wooden frame of the painting fell to the floor with a bang. The canvas was hooked on the railing and tore a long crack. Chen Nanyue's eyes turned red instantly, and she raised her hand to fight with me, but she was half a head shorter than me, and she didn't have the habit of keeping fit like me. I quickly distanced myself from her and pushed her aside. Hiss! Chen Nanyue hit the wall. When she got up, her entire right arm hung down in an unnatural posture. My arm is broken. It hurts so much, my arm is broken. I watched coldly as Chin Nanue held her arm and screamed and cried in pain. I didn't feel any pity in my heart. I cursed, "You deserve it," and then left without looking back. 10. On this day, Chu Yan called me 18 times and sent dozens of WeChat messages. I ignored all of them. It wasn't until I got home at night that I found that Chu Yan had sent away the housekeeper and the servants. In the huge living room, I stood alone on the opposite side of Chu Yan and Chen Nanue. His eyes were filled with anger, and his voice was low. "You apologize to Nanue." I sneered and asked him, "What should I apologize for?" Chu Yan frowned and stepped forward, pointing at Chen Nanue on the sofa, whose eyes were already red from crying, and he was extremely angry. "You destroyed her painting and pushed her down, hurting her arm. Don't you think you should apologize?" I was neither humble nor overbearing. "You believe everything she says. Have you watched the surveillance video?" When the situation was tense, Chen Nanue suddenly spoke. "The surveillance video is broken." She looked at me triumphantly, as if she was certain that I would apologize to her under Chu Yan's coercion. But she was wrong. I already knew that the surveillance video had been secretly damaged by Chu Yan, so I was even more fearless. Facing Chen Nanue's confident gaze, I slowly opened my mouth. "Chen Nanue, after you found out that the surveillance video was broken, you pretended to be aggrieved and thought that Chu Yan would believe whatever you said, right? But let me guess, you didn't tell him why we had the argument, did you?" Chen Nanue trembled. Just as she was about to defend herself, she heard Chu Yan's impatient voice. "You don't need to scare her. Apologize to her." I looked at Chu Yan with a cold expression and squinted my eyes slightly. "Chu Yan, why don't you ask the cause and effect? Why do you believe everything she says?" "She provoked me first. You should ask her properly." Chu Yan raised his voice, his eyes full of disbelief. "Qingyu, do you mean to say that she deliberately provoked you, so she deserved to get hurt?" "Open your eyes and look. That was the painting she stayed up all night to paint for a whole month. She wouldn't throw it away. She's a painter. How could she risk her future and dislocate her entire arm? You made her get hurt. Is it so difficult for you to apologize voluntarily?" I took a deep breath and stared at Chu Yan, enunciating each word clearly. "Then, is it my fault that I froze for several hours in the snowy weather to save you and almost lost my ability to have children?" 11. Chu Yan's face turned pale. "What did you say?" I exhaled and pointed at Chen Nanue on the sofa with a wronged expression. "Chu Yan, she said that you don't love me anymore. She said that I can't have children. And it's shameless for me to stay by your side, but this is my privacy. If you didn't tell her yourself, how could she know?" A look of regret and uneasiness flashed in Chu Yan's eyes. He didn't dare to look me in the eye. He just hung his head and lowered his voice. "Yu, it's my fault. I'm sorry." After a long silence, Chu Yan raised his head again. "But one thing is one thing. I apologize to you, and you should also apologize to Nanue. After all, you hurt her more deeply and almost ruined her future." What Chu Yan wanted to say was, "Chen Nanue just told the truth," but I almost made her unable to hold a paintbrush again. How ridiculous. He was my husband, but he didn't care about my situation at all and didn't care that the gossip would hurt me. Chen Nanue had already filled his heart completely, making him betray me and hurt me as a matter of course. Fortunately, I don't love Chu Yan anymore. I don't feel any pain at all, just nausea. Looking at his righteous accusation, I didn't hesitate to take out the documents and throw them on the table. "Stop explaining, Chu Yan. You might as well just say straightforwardly that you don't love me anymore. Since you don't love me, there's no need for us to be tied together. We're getting a divorce." Looking at the cold words "divorce agreement" on the cover of the document, Chu Yan's face changed. "Qingyu, if you have any doubts, I can explain, but I didn't cheat. I won't agree to the divorce." I tilted my head slightly and looked at Chu Yan, who was suppressing his anger and pretending to be calm. Suddenly, I laughed, then asked Chen Nanue to move out and swear that you will never see her again in this life. "Can you do it?" "What on earth are you making a fuss about? You know that Chen Rue is my best brother. How can I let down his entrustment? Is it just because of Chen Rue?" Chu Yan seemed to deflate suddenly, his eyes dodged. He wanted to explain but didn't know how to start. This scene made me feel extremely ironic. "Stop deceiving yourself, Chu Yan. It's already unclear why you let a girl who has no blood relationship with you and no proper status live in your house. This is a modern society. You can't think of controlling two women at the same time. I don't want to be humiliated with you anymore. You have no choice." I must get a divorce. 12. That night, I left the divorce agreement and left. In the following week, Chu Yan didn't send me any messages. He also didn't sign the agreement. Instead, Chen Nanue sent me photos every day. At first, it was a side profile of Chu Yan in a meeting. Then it was a dinner just for her and Chu Yan. She was elated and overjoyed. Without you at home, Brother Yan can still live well. Don't come back again. I wasn't angry and replied to her, Mistress, please wake up. Chu Yan and I are not divorced yet. I'm still Mrs. Chu. And you're still the mistress who can't see the light. Chen Nanue didn't reply to me. That night, she sent me another photo. It was a photo of Chu Yan's chest covered with hickey marks on the bed in the master bedroom. You won't be Mrs. Chu soon. I didn't reply. I sent this photo together with the video I had saved before to Chu Yan. That video was taken on the night I went on vacation in Haicheng. Chu Yan was drunk and pressed Chen Nanue against the sofa and kissed her deeply. He thought that by deleting the video and destroying the monitoring device after he sobered up, he could completely destroy the evidence and hide this matter. But he didn't know that after I was reborn, I made a real-time backup of the home surveillance video. I know everything clearly about what Chu Yan and Chen Nanue did at home. 13. After receiving Qingyu's email, Chu Yan belatedly realized that things had gotten out of his control. He had been married to Qingyu for 3 years. The love they had at the beginning was real, but every time he saw Qingyu holding Xiaoguai and calling it baby, Chu Yan's heart would always ache. He thought that Qingyu was deliberately blaming him in this way. He even felt that he was a sinner. This was when Chen Nanue appeared. There were clearly many ways, but he stubbornly chose to bring her home. He deceived himself that he was just taking care of Chen Nanue as an older brother, replacing his friend. He knew about Chen Nanue's little tricks, lying, framing, pretending to be weak, but when he thought of his friend's final entrustment, he felt more sorry for Chen Nanue and was willing to protect her more. Chu Yan could see the pure admiration in Chen Nanue's eyes for him. He thought he was firm enough, but he still couldn't help falling in love. He was scared and turned off the home video, trying to soothe his restless heart because of his infidelity in this way. But after seeing Qingyu's email, he realized his stupidity. Qingyu had already discovered it, but she endured it and didn't want to have a falling out with him. If it weren't for Chen Nanue's deliberate provocation, maybe Qingyu wouldn't have erupted at all. This marriage could still be maintained. It was all Chen Nanue's fault. Chu Yan regretted it and thought that if he had been more careful, if he had restricted Chen Nanue more, it would have been better. But why? Qingyu, who climbed the mountain in the snowy weather to ask for a safety amulet for him, just because of this little problem, she suddenly didn't love him anymore. It must be that Qingyu had also changed her heart, so the divorce wasn't his fault alone. 14. Chu Yan asked me to meet him in a coffee shop not far from the Qing Corporation building. When he saw me, he was a little nervous and quickly avoided my gaze. I'm sorry, I didn't say anything and waited for him to continue. After a long time, he raised his head and looked at me nervously. I will ask Nanue to move out of the house. She is Chenrue's only relative. I will give her a sum of money to ensure that she has no worries for the rest of her life. I promise that I will never contact her again. If I do this, can you forgive me? I suddenly understood that it was not surprising at all that Chu Yan would like Chen Nanue. They both had the same strange way of thinking, and they were incredibly stupid. I sighed and my gaze fell on the wedding ring on his left ring finger. Chu Yan, do you still remember your wedding vows? Chu Yan was stunned for a moment and tugged at his tie irritably. Chu Yan and I had a free love relationship. At the wedding, he made a promise to stay together for a lifetime and never betray. Now he had broken it with his own hands. Chu Yan, you can't tolerate any flaws. You wouldn't buy a rotten apple. If I had betrayed you first, you would have abandoned me long ago. Chu Yan's breath caught. Sign it as soon as possible. It's good for both you and me. Otherwise, if Chen Nanue makes a fuss, I can't say what I will do. You're a big CEO. You can disappear with a flick of your wrist. Chen Nanue hasn't graduated yet, and it's hard to say if she can still get her graduation certificate. I was about to leave after I finished speaking, but Chu Yan grabbed my wrist. He retracted his gaze from outside the window, and his voice was low and cold. Are you getting a divorce because of Chen Nanue or because of him? Who? I turned around instinctively and happened to see Qing Fan pushing open the door of the coffee shop and walking towards me anxiously. It was simply ironic. I struggled to break free from his grasp. I slapped Chu Yan with all my strength. Chu Yan, don't think that everyone is as disgusting as you. Then I turned around and happened to be protected in Ching Fan's arms, who had come late. He gave Chu Yan a deep look. He protected me and quickly left under his hateful gaze. 15. 2 days later, I received the divorce agreement signed by Chu Yan. That afternoon, I led a professional moving team back to the villa where I had lived for 3 years and moved out all the things that belonged to me. From the expensive high-end customized dresses and jewelry to the plastic refrigerator magnets bought at a roadside stall, I would rather take them back and throw them away than leave them for Chu Yan and Chen Nanyue. Later, the housekeeper told me that when Chen Nanyue went back in the evening and saw the living room that looked as if it had been robbed, as well as the empty jewelry cabinet and wardrobe, she let out an earth-shattering scream. She felt wronged. She sat on the sofa crying, waiting for Chu Yan to come back. However, I don't know if Chu Yan did it on purpose, but he actually went on a business trip temporarily and didn't come home for a whole week. Not long after the divorce, I moved into a new home in Nanjing with Xiaoguai. When I was lying in the rocking chair with Xiaoguai in my arms, basking in the sun, Ching Fan came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. He served me a bowl of soup that had been slowly simmered over a low fire for 3 hours. Just one sip made me feel that it was incredibly delicious. Looking at Ching Fan's back as he helped me organize the bookshelf in the distance, I suddenly remembered the words Chu Yan had said in the coffee shop. I couldn't help but fall into deep thought. When my parents found Ching Fan back then, he was still a baby in swaddling clothes. Since they couldn't find his relatives after several months of reporting to the police and they couldn't bear to send him to an orphanage to suffer, they adopted him and have treated him like their own ever since. There was the character Fan embroidered on his saliva towel, so my parents named him Ching Fan. In Ching Fan's first year of senior high school, the Fan family in Haicheng came to look for him. They said he was the youngest son of the Fan family in Haicheng. That winter, Ching Fan refused to leave for Haicheng. He insisted on spending the spring festival with us at home before leaving. He was gone for 6 years. The day he came back happened to be my engagement banquet with Chu Yan. Looking at my brother whom I hadn't seen for years and who seemed a bit unfamiliar, I really wanted to hold his arm, but I didn't dare to get close. My parents had long planned to retire and travel around the world. Unfortunately, I didn't like running the company, so they had never been able to fulfill their wish. After learning that Ching Fan wouldn't leave, they completely became hands-off managers and handed over the company and me to Ching Fan. In the following years, I gradually regained the closeness I had with Ching Fan when we were children. He was very good to me. He doted on me and indulged me, and he would even risk his life for me. I had never thought that Ching Fan would have feelings for me that were different from those of a brother and sister. After all, he was the most favored youngest son of a century-old prestigious family, and there was no need for him to like me while facing all the gossip. However, those words of Chu Yan's really did make me feel troubled. After thinking for a while, I pretended to be cheerful and said, "Brother, your cooking skills are so good, it would be a pity if you don't find someone to appreciate them." Ching Fan didn't raise his head, and his voice was tired. "Didn't you just appreciate it?" "But I can't appreciate it every day. You're half a year older than me. It's time for you to find a girlfriend." Before I could finish my sentence, Ching Fan gave me a cold look. I immediately lowered my head, and my voice became softer and softer. Seeing my cowardly appearance, Ching Fan sighed. "You just ended a marriage and now you're urging me to get married, Ching Yu. Are you serious?" I pursed my lips and whispered in defense, "I just hope you can be happy." "I will be happy." From a long distance away, Ching Fan looked straight at me. "You don't need to test me. I have my own plans. I will be happy, but it's not the time yet." After saying that, he averted his gaze and turned back into the kitchen. I blinked a few times and suddenly felt a complex mix of emotions. I silently complained to Xiaoguai, "He's really hard to understand." 16. In the second month after the divorce, I had already adapted to the independent life with just me and the cat. Ching Fan would occasionally come to bring food, but he maintained a frequency that didn't disturb or interfere. It was as if nothing had happened that afternoon. In contrast, Chu Yan didn't have a good time. Since we lived in the same social circle, even if I didn't actively inquire, I could still know something about his news. After he came back from his business trip, he gave Chen Nanyue a sum of money and asked her to move out of the house. Chen Nanyue refused and threw a huge tantrum at him. Surprisingly, Chu Yan's attitude was extremely firm. It was as if the person who had once had only Chen Nanyue in his heart and eyes wasn't himself. Even after moving out of the villa, Chen Nanyue still wasn't reconciled. She waited at the gate of the villa and blocked Chu Yan at his company. She even broke into the meeting room despite being stopped, causing Chu Yan to lose a very valuable big order. When I heard this news, I suddenly felt that Chen Nanyue at this moment was like me in my previous life. Because she didn't believe that Chu Yan would change his heart, she turned herself into an angry bird and crashed headfirst into the whirlpool. She ended up being completely destroyed. It was a Pyrrhic situation. Chu Yan was equally heartless towards Chen Nanyue and didn't even give her a chance to meet him. Driven crazy, Chen Nanyue vented all her resentment on me, listening to the filthy insults on the phone. I closed my eyes. But Chen Nanyue, did Chu Yan ever say that he loved you with his own mouth? The cursing stopped abruptly. 2 seconds later, there was a beeping sound. I had watched the home surveillance. When facing Chen Nanyue, Chu Yan never said anything beyond the boundaries, and he never took the initiative to make a decent promise. He was like a competent manipulator, enjoying manipulating Chen Nanyue's admiration for him. It was the same with Chen Nanyue. It was also the same with me. Otherwise, Chu Yan wouldn't have brought Chen Nanyue home openly, tested me again and pushed my bottom line. Chu Yan was a complete scumbag. 17. Chu Yan has come to find me recently, either through work or through friends, but I refused him every time. Until this time, I received an invitation from Chu Yan to the charity dinner of the foundation. The foundation of the Chu Corporation was established in my name by Chu Yan after he recovered from his illness. It was also a project that I had put the most effort into building after getting married, so I couldn't refuse. That night, he walked straight towards me through the crowd. When he got close, I realized that he had been tortured by Chen Nanyue and looked very haggard. Even the customized suit couldn't hide his exhaustion. He said, "Yu, I've already asked Nanyue to move out. Can you give me a chance to start over?" I didn't understand Chu Yan's way of thinking and took half a step back to create some distance. "Chu Yan, I don't like you anymore. We're already divorced. There's no point in saying these things." Chu Yan didn't agree. Just as he was about to say something, there was a commotion outside the door. It turned out to be Chen Nanyue. Since she didn't have an invitation, she got into a fight with the security guard who was blocking her. Chu Yan's face darkened instantly, and he rushed towards her. I don't know how he soothed Chen Nanyue. 10 minutes later, Chu Yan came back alone. He walked towards me again, but was stopped by the staff halfway and was told that it was time for him to go on stage and give a speech. Chu Yan asked me to wait for him, but my eyelids kept twitching, and I felt uneasy in my heart. I left the banquet hall before he finished his speech. Unexpectedly, I met Chen Nanyue in the underground garage. Her hair was disheveled. There were several footprints on the lace hem of her dress, which had been stepped on by the security guards just now. She looked like a pitiful rag doll, but it made me feel a sense of fear. "Qingyu, I want you to die. As long as you die, Brother Yan will only be able to love me." She took out a knife from behind her back and pounced towards me, screaming. I turned and ran. I was shouting for help as I ran, but at a corner, I stepped on the hem of my dress, sprained my ankle, lost my balance, and fell down the stairs. The next second, Chen Nanyue caught up. I curled up into a ball, screaming. There was no expected pain. A few drops of blood dripped onto the ground beside my ear. I turned around and saw Chu Yan standing above me, blocking me. The dagger pierced through his back and came out from his chest. 18. In the emergency room, Chu Yan had a very long dream. It was as if he had been injected with the memories of himself in another parallel universe. In that world, Chu Yan completely violated his original oath. He fell in love with Chen Nanyue and betrayed Qingyu. He knew about the bad qualities in Chen Nanyue, but he indulged her blindly, making Qingyu sad again and again. When Qingyu was kidnapped, he didn't hesitate to choose to save Chen Nanyue. The reason was simple. Chen Nanyue only had him. Qingyu, on the other hand, had Qingfan to save her. But he didn't expect that Qingfan would have a car accident on the way to save Qingyu and fall off a cliff. The kidnappers were afraid of causing a big fuss and getting into trouble, so they killed the hostage in advance. They left Qingyu alone in the wilderness. After losing Qingyu, Chu Yan suddenly felt at a loss. He didn't seem to love Chen Nanyue that much anymore. Especially after discovering that the kidnapping case was deliberately designed by Chen Nanyue and that Chen Nanyue had tampered with Qingfan's car. Chu Yan thought Chen Nanyue was disgusting. He was like having a split personality and became the Chu Yan who only loved Qingyu again. He collected evidence and sent Chen Nanyue to prison. The day Chen Nanyue was taken away, she screamed and accused. "It was you who made me like this. It was you who betrayed Qingyu. It's all your fault." Chu Yan was suddenly awakened as if he had been slapped. He belatedly realized that he was the one who started all this. Qingyu died because of his betrayal. Chu Yan couldn't accept the reality. After staying awake for 2 nights, Chu Yan swallowed a whole bottle of sleeping pills. Beep, his heart stopped beating. Beep, 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 his heart started beating again. 19. Chen Nanyue was arrested on the day of the incident. Chu Yan was injured in a vital part and didn't wake up until a week later. I went to visit him in the hospital the day after Chu Yan woke up. Qing Fan went with me. When Chu Yan saw him, he frowned slightly, but his tone was calm and gentle. Can you let me talk to Qingyu alone? Qing Fan saw me nod and then turned and went out. It was just me and Chu Yan in the ward. He looked at me with a gaze that was both strange and familiar. After a long time, he managed to squeeze out an ugly smile. I'm sorry, Qingyu. I didn't mean not to choose you on purpose. I was suddenly stunned. Then I heard him say, it must have been very painful when the dagger went through your heart, right? My face turned pale instantly, and I took 2 steps back towards the door. You're back too. Chu Yan didn't say anything, just looked at me and nodded. I didn't ask why Chu Yan from the previous life died, and I didn't care. In both the previous life and this life, he deserved his punishment. Perhaps sensing my rejection, Chu Yan weakly covered his eyes. I've always owed you a sincere apology, and also the one to Qing Fan. I was confused. What do you mean by that? Chu Yan sighed and told me about Chen Nanyue's design of the kidnapping case and her tampering with Qing Fan's car. Perhaps he hadn't fully recovered yet. By the end, he was breathing rapidly and started coughing. I stood in the distance, my body trembling uncontrollably. Seeing that I still refused to get close, he pulled out the oxygen tube, rolled out of bed, and then stumbled over to me and knelt down to beg. I know you won't forgive me, but I still want to ask. If I hadn't brought Chen Nanyue home, would we not have ended up like this? He was still evading responsibility and pushing all the consequences onto Chen Nanyue. I felt as if there was a heavy weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe, but I forced myself to stay calm. I pushed his hand away. There are no ifs. Then I ignored Chu Yan, who was lying on the ground unable to get up, and immediately opened the door and left. I found Qing Fan at the end of the corridor. He had just finished a phone call and was walking towards me. Brother. I quickened my pace and threw myself into his arms. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears for the first time since I was reborn. 20. That was the last time I saw Chu Yan. I heard that he hadn't been in good health after being discharged from the hospital. He was also in low spirits and developed the habit of drinking heavily. In just half a year, he was admitted to the hospital 3 times. When the waiter reminded me that the restaurant was about to close, I received a message on my phone. All these things had nothing to do with me anymore. Qing Fan picked up a little calico cat downstairs from the company. He was afraid that he couldn't take good care of the kitten, so he brought it over and asked me to raise it with him. He would come to take a look from time to time, bringing toys and cat food. He would also bring my favorite snacks and cook special meals for me. He always took care of me just right. He didn't make me feel the slightest bit of discomfort or rejection. He didn't force me to give an answer. And he also didn't take that step for a long time. Some things need to be left to time. We don't need to be in a hurry. Story 2. In a previous life, my sister was adopted by a wealthy family, while I was taken in by a janitor. Within the affluent family, my sister faced severe internal strife, indifferent parents, and bullying from her brother, which eventually led her to leave with nothing. In contrast, my adoptive family, although not wealthy, was filled with love and harmony. Ironically, the wealthy young master fell in love with me, a poor girl, turning my life into something straight out of a TV drama. Driven by resentment, my sister murdered me, and we both found ourselves back to the day we were adopted. This time, she rushed into the janitor's arms. Sister. This time, I'm the lead in the drama. But she didn't realize that being the protagonist isn't about where you come from. My sister and I were reborn and returned to the day we were at the orphanage waiting to be adopted. In the director's office stood 2 families, the Gu family and the Zhou family. The Gu family was impeccably dressed, the man wore a suit, the woman was adorned with jewels, and their only son Gu Zhiyue was in a high school uniform but sported a pair of globally limited edition sneakers. This was the illustrious Gu family, with the father being a business magnate contributing significantly to the city's taxes and the mother a socialite frequently seen at jewelry auctions and charity dinners. Their son, Gu Zhiyue, was known as the city's prince. In contrast, the Zhou family looked modest and worn. Both parents had marks of physical labor on their hands, and despite wearing their best clothes, There were still traces of unwashed stains, previously. My sister Sherman had unhesitatingly chosen the Gu family, but now, almost as if afraid of being left behind, she threw herself into the janitor's arms. "Mom, take me with you, I want to be your daughter, from now on, I'll be called Zhou Sherman." Amidst her excited cries, I approached the Gu family. Thus, our fates were decided, and we were taken away by our new families. As we left the orphanage, I heard the director muttering to himself in confusion, "It's strange. Sherman has always been competitive, never sparing a glance at anyone dressed modestly before. Why didn't she choose the real wealthy family this time?" The director didn't understand, but I did. He saw me earning a scholarship, excelling as the top student, attending school during the day and helping my mom clean offices at night. Despite the hardships, I never complained. "Zhou Shichu is quite an interesting girl," he remarked. It was like something out of a drama series, where the rebellious rich young master falls for the resilient and poor innocent girl. Later, when Gu's parents passed away and the time came to divide the inheritance, Gu Zhiyue, accompanied by a team of lawyers, left Sherman with nothing, forcing her out of the family without a penny to her name. A few months later, Gu Zhiyue married me. Even at the wedding, he boldly declared, "Zhou Shichu, from now on, what's mine is yours." Unfortunately, I never got to enjoy Gu Zhiyue's wealth, because a few days later, driven to despair and madness, Sherman killed me in a car crash. In this new life, my sister didn't hesitate to choose the Zhou family. Though they weren't extremely wealthy, the absence of scheming allowed her to enjoy the full and undivided love of her parents and grow up in a happy home. She would also be cherished and protected by a wealthy young master, eventually leading to a fairy tale-like grand wedding. With a smile, she told me, "Sister, this time, it's my turn to be the protagonist of a drama series. You should experience everything I went through." Sherman's expectations were not wrong, and in fact, Gu Zhiyue's bullying started even earlier than in the previous life. In school, my head was dunked into a sink surrounded by the mocking laughter of a group of boys. Just as I was about to run out of oxygen, someone lifted me by the back of my neck. Gu Zhiyue was smiling at me. "You want my family's money? Sure. Drink all the water in the toilet bowl. For each sip, I'll give you 100,000. How about that?" His cronies cheered excitedly. I looked at Gu Zhiyue. The person who had gently professed his love in my past life was now unleashing his cruelty on me without restraint. But Gu Zhiyue wasn't looking at me. His gaze went past me, towards the back where Zhou Sherman was bending down to mop the floor. "Isn't that Zhou Sherman? Why is she still cleaning?" One of the cronies informed Gu Zhiyue. "Her mom's the school cleaner. She goes to school during the day and helps her mom in the evenings." A look of shock followed by pity flashed across Gu Zhiyue's eyes. He shouted to Zhou Sherman, "Hey, it's too cold, stop cleaning, no one's going to check anyway." Zhou Sherman straightened up, her long black hair cascading over her shoulders, her delicate face set in a defiant expression. She shook her head. "I can't do that. If someone comes to check and finds the floor dirty, my mom will lose 100 yuan from her salary. I know 100 yuan might mean nothing to a young master like you, but for my family, it's a week's worth of groceries." After saying that, Zhou Sherman bent down and continued to mop the floor. After thinking it over, I draped my coat over her shoulders. "It's late, how will you get home?" "I'll ride my bike." "You're biking in this cold weather?" Gu Zhiyue was astonished, then said decisively, "Wait downstairs, I'll have my driver take you home." Zhou Sherman was escorted away under Gu Zhiyue's protection. As she was leaving, she didn't forget to sneak a mocking smile at me, who was in a sorry state. Soon after, everyone dispersed, and only I was left by the pool, struggling to get up. I used my sleeve to wipe the water dripping from my hair. "Use this," a cool voice came from behind me. I turned around to see our class president, Song Xiaoli. She was a quiet and reserved girl, very studious, and wore long sleeves through all seasons. In the past, she had helped Zhou Sherman when she was being bullied. She handed Zhou Sherman a towel and urged her to expose Gu Zhiyue's bullying, but Zhou Sherman slapped her hand away. "What do you know? He's my brother." Back then, Zhou Sherman was still dreaming that Gu Zhiyue would come to like her. So afterward, Song Xiaoli stopped intervening and continued to keep to herself. Later, close to graduation, Song Xiaoli took her own life. That was when we learned that her family was extremely poor. Her grandmother was bedridden year-round, and her father was a gambler who not only abused her but also planned to sell her to settle his debts. Now, she stood next to me, holding a clean towel. I hesitated, then took it. She didn't say much else and turned to leave. She probably thought there wasn't much to say to someone like me, a privileged daughter of the Gu family. Watching her figure about to disappear, I suddenly spoke up, "Class president." She stopped in her tracks. I scratched my head. "Well, I just transferred here and still don't know my way around. Where's the cafeteria? Can you show me?" In the cafeteria, the table was set with 4 dishes and 1 soup, braised spare ribs, steamed pork with eggs, cola chicken wings, stir-fried choy sum, and clam and winter melon soup. It was indeed the best high school in Jiang City, and the cafeteria's food was a point of pride. I scratched my head again. I accidentally ordered too much. It's shameful to waste, and you probably haven't had dinner yet, right? Shall we eat together? Song Shali was silent for a moment, then finally picked up her chopsticks and began to eat. I noticed her wrists peeking out from her school uniform sleeves, delicate and slender. Actually, it's girls like the class president who truly need help, but because they're not beautiful and don't complain, they just become a forgotten weed in the memories of youth, not even qualifying as the lead in a romantic drama. This time, I'm determined not just to save myself, but to save her too. Resolute, I spoke up. Conic sections are so hard, I can't understand them at all. Class president, you're good at studying. How about tutoring me? Song Shali, with a piece of braised rib in her mouth, looked at me with an expression that said, "Are we that close?" I didn't give her a chance to refuse. I cheerfully put my arm around the class president's shoulders. "Then it's settled. I'll pay you for the tutoring." I gave a portion of my living expenses to the class president, claiming it was a prepayment for tutoring fees. She looked at the envelope with 100 red bills inside, too shocked to speak. In both past and present lives, the Gu family always ensured that their adopted daughter never lacked basic necessities and living expenses. However, the amount of money that Gu Zhiyue considered small was enough for Song Shali to afford her grandmother's medicine and hospital fees. She could even rent a small apartment off campus to escape her abusive father. After scheduling a tutoring session with the class leader for the next day, I returned home. The luxurious villa was empty. Father Gu was out at a business entertainment, and Mother Gu was at the beauty salon for maintenance. As for Gu Zhiyue, he was probably dining at the Zhou family's home. In a previous life, the Zhou family's parents warmly invited him to stay for dinner after seeing him drop me off. Just like a scene from a typical idol drama, a simple dinner in the modest household allowed the young master, accustomed to the cold luxury of affluent life, to experience the warm kinship of a poor family. The genuine smiles always present on the faces of Zhou's parents and the warmth of their humble, lively home made Gu Zhiyue yearn for and appreciate the simplicity of life in such a family. At this moment, although he and Zhou Sherman were eating plain food, they were probably very happy. I slowly changed into my Hermes robe, washed my face with Chanel cleanser, ate a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest prepared by the nanny, and sneered. Unbeknownst to many, the Zhou couple was not as genuine as they appeared. They favored boys over girls and initially wanted to adopt a boy. However, since there were no healthy boys available in the orphanage, they settled for a beautiful girl, hoping she would attract a wealthy suitor in the future. Seeing Gu Zhiyue drop off their daughter, they were thrilled and immediately saw him as a potential match, welcoming him warmly. The so-called familial warmth was nothing but a performance, as that was all they had to impress someone from an affluent background. In a previous life, when I told them I didn't want to marry Gu Zhiyue, my foster mother locked me in a room while my foster father beat me severely with a table leg and a belt. Zhou Sherman might think she's entered heaven in this life, but in reality, there is no true heaven on earth. The Gu family represents a wealthy hell, while the Zhou family is a poor one. Surviving these hells depends on one's own capabilities. In the days that followed, Gu Zhiyue's malice intensified. The lunch prepared by the nanny was sabotaged with a box full of tacks. Dead spiders were squeezed into my facial cleanser and toothpaste. My dresses were burnt with cigarette butts. Each time I was startled and looked up, I met Gu Zhiyue's sinister smile. He mouthed to me, "Gu Shichu, you deserve this." He expected me to cry, but I calmly disposed of the tacks, threw the spiders in the trash, and neatly folded and put away the dresses. This made his smile disappear. He stared at me intently, his voice almost a growl. "Let's see how long you can keep this up." Fortunately, despite enduring Gu Zhiyue's malice, I now had access to all the resources of the Gu family. I no longer had to juggle school during the day and forced labor for my foster mother at night. Instead, with a nanny to take care of me and a driver for transportation, I could focus solely on my studies. In a previous life, I had to save money for a long time to buy extra educational materials, always wary of my foster father stealing my money for his drinking and gambling. Now, my wardrobe was filled with designer clothes and my jewelry box with pieces from Van Cleef Arpels and Cartier. All casually given by Mother Goo. I don't need to pay for it myself. In addition, at the beginning of every month, I receive 50,000 yuan in cash for spending money and a credit card with a limit of 100,000 yuan. If I run out, I just need to tell the butler, and within half an hour, new funds will be deposited into the card. The tough life I used to lead has now fallen entirely on Zhou Shimin. I saw her sleeping through classes because she had to help her foster mother with chores at night and couldn't get enough sleep. Gradually, she stopped doing her homework and began handing in blank papers during exams. In my previous life, I relied on black coffee to keep going, and when I was really tired, I would prick myself with a compass just to stay awake and study. But Zhou Shimin lived a pampered life in her previous life and didn't have the same determination or perseverance, let alone care about her studies. In her view, becoming the fiancé of the Gu family's heir apparent was far more valuable than getting into top universities like Tsinghua or Peking University. So, Zhou Shimin focused all her energy on making Gu Zhiyue like her more. She wouldn't listen during math class, instead quietly writing in a diary meant for Gu Zhiyue's eyes only. She wouldn't show up for dance rehearsals, preferring to sneak out of school with Gu Zhiyue to drive to the countryside and watch the stars. Then, on the eve of the dance performance, she sat outside the rehearsal room crying. I guess Zhou Shimin had studied the crying techniques of drama heroines, looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, tears brimming in her eyes but stubbornly refusing to fall. Then, Gu Zhiyue happened to pass by and see her. The moment Gu Zhiyue asked what was wrong, the tears Zhou Shimin had been holding back finally fell. She threw herself into Gu Zhiyue's arms and burst into tears. Zhiyue, I've lost my chance to perform. All the girls in class are on stage, only I am not allowed to participate. Gu Zhiyue already despised me immensely, and upon hearing this, he became furious. Why not? Zhou Shimin bit her lip, trying hard to stop crying, but still sobbed. She said, my mom is just a cleaner, and my dad is a security guard. I can't even afford the performance costume. I don't deserve to be on stage. Gu Zhiyue's expression grew increasingly grim. He looked at Zhou Shimin, who was struggling to breathe between sobs, and said softly, it's just a costume, I'll buy it for you. Zhou Shimin shook her head, the very picture of a virtuous and impoverished damsel. No, it costs 800 yuan. I can't accept such an expensive gift from you. Gu Zhiyue was both angry and distressed. How dare she? He blurted out in anger. Zhou Shimin tearfully shook her head. After all, she is your sister, the lady of the Gu family. Several buildings in the school are donated by your family, and your father is an honorary member of the school board. Even if the teachers know she's bullying, what can they do? Zhou Shimin didn't notice that at that moment, a reporter who had come to the school for an interview passed behind her, leaning forward. The reporter, sensing a story like a shark smelling blood, asked keenly, bullying, what bullying? And just like that, the situation blew up. The school's largest meeting room was crowded with people, the principal, vice principal, head of discipline, class teacher, journalists from various newspapers. The parents of both the Gu and Zhou families were all present, with Zhou's parents standing in a corner of the room, protecting Zhou Shimin, who was covered in tear stains, their faces full of grievance and anger. Gu's parents originally didn't want to come when they heard it was my trouble. Only when they heard that even the newly appointed head of the education department was present did they rush over. Jiangqing No. 1 high school is the best high school in the city, a model for the education department. Gu's father and the head of the education department clearly had a prior relationship. As soon as he entered, he approached the department head and started smoothing things over. For such a small matter, even Director Li has been alarmed. It's really just kids having conflicts. But the head of the education department was very principled and didn't fall for it. Mr. Gu, bullying is never a trivial matter. I know Gu Shichu is your daughter, but to me, every child here is a student. They are all young saplings. I cannot stand by and watch them grow crooked. With these words, Father Gu could only offer a smile and say nothing more. Yes, we aren't clear on what happened either. Please look into it. Returning to Mother Gu's side, the two exchanged a silent glance. I understood then, if the accusations of bullying were proven true, the Gu family would immediately disown me, their adopted daughter who held little emotional significance to them, and sever all ties with me. given the attitude of father and mother Gu. As for Gu Jiue, he stood next to the constantly sobbing Zhou Shimin, softly consoling her and occasionally lifting his dark eyes to give me a cold glance. The principal, seeing everyone had arrived, asked Zhou Shimin to speak. "Miss Zhou, please tell us what happened." Zhou Shimin lifted her tear-stained eyes and repeated in a low voice what she had told Gu Jiue. The reporters began to seethe with indignation. One of them took the lead. "After preliminary investigations, we found that Gu Shichu and Zhou Shimin were once friends in the same orphanage, close as sisters. Later, Gu Shichu was adopted by the powerful Gu Corporation. While Zhou Shimin's adoptive parents were merely ordinary school staff. Gu Shichu, just because you entered a wealthy family, does that give you the right to bully your former friend and take away opportunities that rightfully belonged to her?" Silence fell. All eyes and cameras were on me, their red lights blinking incessantly. Everyone wanted to uncover a sensational story. After all, in a society where social strata are increasingly solidified, if the children of the wealthy continue to snatch educational opportunities from the less privileged, blocking their paths to progress, it would certainly ignite substantial public outrage. Not to mention, the protagonists of this news story, Zhou Shimin and I, made for a dramatically contrasting pair. In the pin-drop silence of the office, I suddenly let out a snort of laughter, abrupt and loud. The reporters looked at each other in confusion. "Dear journalist, I've read that news workers should cross-verify the information they receive and check the facts. Why, just because you're in a hurry to report a sensational news story, can you skip these steps?" The reporter's face turned red. I stood up, pointing coldly at Zhou Shimin. "Right now, she is the only source of information, and all accusations are solely her side of the story." I looked at Zhou Shimin, her face pale from crying. "I once considered you a sister, but in a past life, you killed me out of jealousy. In this life, you climb up by framing me. If I end up ruining you, it's your own doing. Now that the journalists are asking me, let me tell you what I know. Zhou Shimin is jealous of me. She thinks, despite starting from the same place and even being prettier and smarter than me, why should I lead a better life than hers now? Driven by envy, she fabricated this story to frame me." At this, Gu Jiue immediately countered. Actually, what he wanted to say was that Zhou Shimin had willingly chosen the humble Zhou family, therefore, she couldn't possibly be someone who despised poverty and loved wealth. My accusations were completely twisting the truth, but before he could finish, the door to the principal's office was abruptly thrown open. A slim figure stood at the door, with short hair and a nondescript appearance, like an unnoticed weed. Our class teacher recognized her. "Song Xiaoli, what are you doing here?" At this time in my past life, Song Xiaoli had already taken her own life, but in this life, she survived. She walked in and stood beside me. In a low voice, she said, "I'm here to testify." From her attire, it was clear that Song Xiaoli wasn't born into a wealthy family. At first glance, she seemed more akin to someone like Zhou Shimin. Song Xiaoli glanced at the person who had asked her the question and shook her head. "I'm here to testify for Gu Shichu," she said. I was surprised to see Song Xiaoli there. Honestly, I had prepared extensively for today's confrontation, but Song Xiaoli was not among the witnesses I had prepared. After all, our relationship wasn't particularly close. After giving her some money last time, she checked the current market rates for tutoring fees. Calculating an hourly rate, she returned the excess money to me. She tutored me in math for an hour each day. When the hour ended, she would promptly pack her bags and leave. Much like a robot programmed to follow a set routine, in her previous life, Song Xiaoli had committed suicide by jumping from a building just before her college entrance exams. All her hopes were pinned on getting into a good university to quickly earn money for her grandmother's medical treatment. A month before the exams, her father lost money gambling, drank several bottles of cheap liquor, and came home to give Song Xiaoli the worst beating of her life. Her right hand, the one she wrote with, was broken. No one knew exactly what else happened that day, what other horrors the battered Song Xiaoli endured. When people found her again, the ever-silent girl had already jumped from the rooftop. In this life, although Song Xiaoli and I weren't friends, I still wanted to save her. So, I paid some thugs to beat up Song Xiaoli's father and send him to the hospital, at least until the exams were over. He wouldn't be able to abuse her. To meticulously plan this, I uncharacteristically missed an evening self-study session. When I returned, Song Xiaoli, who was in charge of attendance, caught me red-handed. "Why did you skip the evening study session?" she asked. I scratched my head, desperate for an excuse. After all, looking perfectly healthy. I couldn't just say, "I skipped class to beat up your dad." Just then, Song Xiaoli was called out by a teacher. "Xiaoli, you have a phone call." It was the news about her father's accident. 5 minutes later, Song Xiaoli returned, her expression as impassive as ever. She picked up the attendance sheet again and then put it down. "I won't record it this time," she said calmly. "Don't miss it again." At that moment, I breathed a sigh of relief and hurried back to my seat to study. Now, as Song Xiaoli declared in the same calm tone, "I am here to testify for Gu Shichu." I realized she might know everything, with everyone's eyes on her. Song Xiaoli pulled out a stack of forms and placed them on the table. Zhou Shiman's face turned ghostly pale. Entering the dance studio for rehearsal required filling out forms according to school regulations, what times the studio was borrowed and who was using it, all documented. However, this was not strictly enforced, and filling them out was cumbersome, so eventually, most stopped and just notified the dance teacher directly. No one expected that Song Xiaoli, meticulous as ever, filled out the forms every time and kept them all. Now, under the watchful eyes of everyone, it was clear to see, out of over 30 forms, Zhou Shiman's name appeared only on 2. This meant that out of more than 30 rehearsals, she had attended just 2. After everyone had a clear view of the forms, Song Xiaoli slowly began to speak. Zhou Shiman claimed that Gu Shichu mocked her for not being able to afford the performance costume, and that's why she wasn't allowed on stage. But when I told Gu Shichu I couldn't afford the costume and didn't want to participate, he encouraged me to continue rehearsing, picked up my phone and played a video clip for everyone. In the video, it was clear to see that Zhou Shiman was out of sync, forgetting her moves and unable to keep up. She stood out as the weakest performer, noticeably so. Indeed, during the previous rehearsals, she had been off stargazing with Gu Zhiyue instead. Actually, Zhou Shiman wasn't very keen on participating in this performance. It was only after I had excluded her that she twisted the story to gain Gu Zhiyue's sympathy and dislike towards me. She hadn't anticipated this situation blowing up this much, especially with me having both witnesses and solid evidence on my side. Originally, I shouldn't have taken it upon myself to exclude Zhou Shiman. But this dance performance had special bonus points for admissions, and 2 girls in our group who are specialized students were relying on these points for their future education. Had I allowed Zhou Shiman to participate, it would have jeopardized their opportunities, so I had to make that decision. After the interview, the public perception of me and Zhou Shiman completely flipped. Classmates began to say she suffered from a persecution complex and started to distance themselves from her. "Don't get too close to Zhou Shiman, or she might accuse you of bullying her because she's poor." Realistically, her family isn't that poor, right? Both her parents have decent jobs. And there are many students at our school who are poorer and rely on scholarships, yet they don't go around claiming they are bullied. Some people just like to blame their fate instead of putting in the effort. Surprisingly, Zhou Shiman remained quiet throughout. She passed the final self-study period in silence, without stirring any trouble, all the way through the college entrance exams. Song Xiaoli warned me, "Be careful, she might be planning her retaliation." I smiled. No worries, if she can keep her cool, so can I. I could sense that Zhou Shiman was plotting something behind the scenes. At home, it was visibly obvious that Gu Zhiyue's attitude towards me was deteriorating. Before, he would at least avoid bullying me in front of Gu's parents. Now, during a family dinner, he slammed a bowl full of chicken soup on the table, splashing the hot liquid on my face. The maid nearby gasped, quickly bringing me an ice pack and burn ointment. Throughout this, Gu's mother kept her head down, sipping her soup as if she saw nothing. Gu's father glanced up briefly and told Gu Zhiyue, "Be more careful, don't let others think our child is ill-mannered." Gu's father and mother didn't care about me. To them, I was just an adopted daughter brought home based on a fortune teller's advice, like a lucky tree placed there for good fortune. In my previous life, Zhou Shiman had tried to foster a relationship with Gu's parents, but that approach proved utterly wrong. When Gu's parents were busy, they would leave their own son with a nanny. How could they possibly develop a bond with an adopted daughter? In a wealthy family, talking about feelings is useless. It's only worth discussing interests. So I put down the ice pack. I turned to my parents calmly and said, "Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. I scored 718 on my college entrance exam, making me the top science student." As soon as I finished speaking, both my father and mother looked up sharply. Even my brother Gu Zhiyue widened his eyes in surprise. I casually picked up some stir-fried kale with my chopsticks and ate leisurely, then, facing the astonished looks from the three of them at the dining table, I spoke lightly. Mom and Dad always said that studying is our own business, so I didn't think to report my score, but my teacher just called me, saying that some reporters want to interview you about your parenting experiences. I wanted to ask if you'd be available. In my previous life, even though I worked part-time while studying, I still achieved good grades. In this life, having relearned the same knowledge without any obstacles, my performance soared to new heights. My parents exchanged looks, clearly taken aback. Before this, they had never paid much attention to the college entrance exam. Gu Zhiyue had applied to schools in Australia early on and went abroad right after high school, so he didn't need to take the exam. As for me, their foster daughter, they left things to fate and didn't bother much. No one expected me to do so well. I plan to apply to the Guanghua School of Management at Peking University, I said, looking at my father. I'll start interning at the investment department of Dad's company in my freshman year. My father was silent for a couple of seconds before he responded with a smile. If you have that ambition, it's certainly a good thing. Sure Chu, congratulations. Lee, could you please bring some red wine from the trunk of my car? Sure Chu must be 18 by now, right? Let's celebrate properly today. Ignoring the almost dripping dark gaze of Gu Zhiyue, I raised my glass to clink with my parents. Gratefully acknowledging their support, I had made the right bet. My parents didn't care about an ordinary foster daughter, but what if the foster daughter was the top scorer in the college entrance exam? That was a glory for the family, a testament to successful parenting, a beacon of hope for the future. My parents were delighted, opening several bottles of cherished red wine, and we fixed the time for the interview with the reporter before they went off to rest slightly tipsy. Only Gu Zhiyue and I were left at the dining table. The chandelier cast a foreboding shadow on his face. He inherited his mother's good looks, with a handsome nose and deep eyes, truly a stunning figure of a wealthy young master, yet at that moment, he looked at me with those beautiful eyes, cold and dark. Gu Shichu, you don't think that just by doing this, you can truly become part of my family, do you? I stood up, politely resetting the chair to its original place. Then leaned close to Gu Zhiyue's ear and whispered, young master, you might want to get your facts straight. It's your parents who now actively want me to be part of the family. On the day I went back to school to collect my transcript, I encountered Zhou Shimeng. She stood in the shadows looking at me, her expression a mix of jealousy, confusion, and anger. I knew she had seen the video of my interview with my parents. In the video, my mother had her arm around my shoulders, and my father was eloquently speaking to the host. The host complimented him for being both a successful businessman and a successful educator. At the end, the three of us took a family photo that looked like those perfect families in commercials. This was something Zhou Shimeng never had in her previous life. She stared at me and said in a low, resentful voice, "What tricks did you use?" I shrugged. Believe it or not, just studying hard and aiming high every day. I walked away, convinced that Zhou Shimeng didn't believe me, yet this was the only solution. Behind me, I heard her softly say, even if you gain the love of Gu's parents, it's useless. Gu Zhiyue loves me. Typical of a drama series heroine, isn't it? To be with the male lead against all odds, even if it means going against the wishes of their parents or the world. I wished her well. However, about 10 minutes later, I encountered the lead male of the drama himself. Gu Zhiyue, followed by a group of his entourage, cornered me in the hallway. By this time, the teachers and other students had left, and the building was deserted. My calls for help would go unheard. I looked up and realized that even the surveillance cameras had been tampered with. They had come prepared. Gu Zhiyue confronted me, his voice low. Gu Shichu, it's time to wake up from your carp leaping over the Dragon Gate dream. Today, I'll show you what happens to hypocrites. No sooner had his words faded than his lackey charged forward, grabbing my hair and smashing my head against the wall with force. With a loud bang, plaster dust scattered from the wall. Pain shot through my head, seeing stars, yet from somewhere I found the strength to fiercely kick the lackey right between his legs. A scream of agony followed, and he collapsed to the ground. His face contorted in pain. Gu Zhiyue's expression changed instantly. Just as he was about to signal the other lackeys to step forward, I suddenly pulled a wine bottle from my backpack. It was a gift from Gu's father for a dinner party that evening, intended for sharing with classmates. In a swift motion, I smashed the wine bottle against the wall, splattering red liquid in shards in all directions. Then, brandishing the jagged bottle, I faced the group of boys threateningly. come on. I shouted loudly. My hair was a mess, coated with filthy wall dust. A warm liquid trickled from my nose to my chin, probably blood. I didn't know how deranged I looked, but evidently, the sight had frozen the boys in place. None dared approach. Wiping the blood from my nose, I laughed and said, hypocritical, Gu Jiue, you really have a way with words. Fine, I'm hypocritical, and you're righteous. At least the hypocritical me has donated money to save people. What about our righteous young master Gu, who has benefited from your help? Ah, it wouldn't just be your beloved damsel in distress, would it? In the distance, Zhou Shimao bit her lip and sidestepped to hide. She didn't need to hide. I had already seen her. Gu Jiue was ready to defend her and take me down. How could she miss this drama? The blood continued to flow from my nose, impossible to wipe clean, so I simply let it be, looking at Gu Jiue and then at the dozen boys behind him. I smiled calmly. Gu Jiue, you brought so many people, made such a scene, you better not let me leave here alive today, otherwise, my smile faded. If you let me walk away alive, I'll drag you to hell with me. Gu Jiue's face turned pale. Just as Zhou Shimao once said, Gu's father is an honorary school director, and with the Gu family's significant influence, Gu Jiue bullying students usually went unnoticed by the teachers as long as it didn't escalate too seriously. But he didn't have the guts to kill someone at school. He stared at me for a long time before muttering softly, you'd be getting off easy if you died now, you scheming woman. I laughed loudly. Is this scheming to you? Want to know what real scheming looks like? I looked at Gu Jiue, a chilling thrill passing through me. Finally, I could tell him. I spoke deliberately. The journalist investigating the bullying case was brought in by me. In an instant, both Gu Jiue and Zhou Shimao's pupils dilated. You thought it was just a coincidence, a casual mention of bullying, and a journalist happened to hear it while visiting the school. I pointed at myself, smiling. Because I arranged for that journalist to come, I wrote anonymous letters to several newspapers, reporting severe bullying at Jiangqing one middle school. This kind of story, if true, is front-page news, so they were bound to send someone to investigate. I knew with Zhou Shimao's simple mind, if I bumped her from the dance performance, she'd likely run to you, claiming I bullied her. Perfect timing. As she came to you crying, the journalist was conducting undercover visits, a match made in heaven. The journalists will definitely investigate me. Of course, I prepared everything necessary. In the end, I'll be able to prove my innocence. But think about it, Gu Jiue. Once the journalists realize that this was all a misunderstanding and that I'm not the bully, will they just stop there? Or will they keep digging? Gu Jiue's face suddenly turned pale. I smiled. Do you understand? I orchestrated this whole event just for you. Even if only 2 out of the 7 or 8 journalists present that day continue their investigation, it will be enough to cause you significant trouble. You must have heard what the director of the Education Bureau said. He despises bullying the most. If your bullying comes to light, not even Dad can save you. See, Gu Shao, this is what you call being schematically brilliant. After I spoke with a grin, Gu Jiue's expression turned extremely sour, and the boys around him were clearly losing their patience. What should we do, Brother Gu? Are the journalists still around the school? If they come this way, we're done for. If this gets recorded, it will affect us for life. These boys were mostly from ordinary families and followed Gu Jiue into misdeeds only because they believed he had a strong backing and couldn't get into serious trouble. But the press conference that day in the meeting room was intimidating enough to deter anyone. I am nominally the daughter of the Gu family, and even I was nearly ruined by the event, let alone others. I masterminded the whole affair, using a decoy to warn the real bully, Gu Jiue. So, dear brother, please take good care of me and support my work at the Gu Corporation. I leaned in close to Gu Jiue, smiling charmingly. Otherwise, I might just drag the entire Gu family down with me. My smile disappeared abruptly as I tapped Gu Jiue's neck with a broken bottle and walked away. No one stopped me the entire time. Only Zhou Shiman's voice, tinged with a sob, could be heard from behind. Jiue, how could you just let her walk away like that? His response was a cold and irritable. Get lost. Gu Jiue seemed to have suddenly become obedient. In the past, he never allowed me to attend any of the Gu family's banquets. This time, someone invited him to a dinner, and he proactively said to Mother Gu, let me take my sister with me. Mom, please prepare a dress for her. Over the phone, I heard Zhou Shiman quarrel with him. Shouldn't you be taking me as your date? Gu Jiue sounded very impatient. I've already paid for you to study in Australia. What more do you want? Zhou Shimin's performance in her college entrance examination was very poor. In her past life, her academics were weak, and she was solely focused on ingratiating herself with the Gu family. This time, from easy mode to hell mode, her results were even worse. Her only way out was to cling to Gu Zhiyue, but I could tell that Gu Zhiyue was getting annoyed. Initially, Zhou Shimin attracted Gu Zhiyue with her image of a poor but stubborn and independent girl, a persona of dignity that wealth could not corrupt and force could not subdue, but this was not her true nature. One can pretend for a while, but not forever. Gu Zhiyue liked girls who were poor yet could say no to luxurious gifts, not the kind who would cry and beg him to take her to study in Australia, but unfortunately, Zhou Shimin could fake the former but truly couldn't keep up the latter. Because she had no other options, if Gu Zhiyue didn't take her along, she would be truly trapped in the suffocating Zhou family. After the summer break, Zhou Shimin went to Australia with Gu Zhiyue. Actually, Gu Zhiyue never publicly acknowledged Zhou Shimin as his girlfriend, but Zhou's parents couldn't wait. They hired paparazzi to follow Gu Zhiyue and Zhou Shimin, took photos of the couple dining intimately, and posted them online. Gu Corporation's heir seen dining intimately with his girlfriend. The pair reportedly childhood sweethearts. Mr. Gu saw the report and threw his phone down in anger. Such lowly tactics, she hasn't even graduated from university, and already they're trying to push her into our family. When Gu Zhiyue returned home, his father scolded him fiercely. If you want to get married, wait for your mother and me to arrange it. You can look around and date casually if you like, but don't bring home someone who clearly can't hold their own in society. Gu Zhiyue listened silently, his gaze quietly fixed on me. Sitting beside him, I felt his eyes on me, but I just kept my head down, focusing on the financial report. It was the same with Zhou's parents in their previous lives. Just as Gu Zhiyue started to show some interest in me, they couldn't wait to drug me and send me straight to Gu's bed. As for Gu's parents, they too had fiercely opposed Gu Zhiyue marrying a girl from this kind of family in their past lives. Unfortunately, fate was short. They died before Gu Zhiyue could get married. After berating Gu Zhiyue, his father strictly forbade him from meeting Zhou Shimin during his vacation. Gu Zhiyue did not resist. He stayed at home, occasionally showing me kindness, and bought me a pair of expensive diamond earrings for my birthday. I was out with friends until late, and he waited outside the bar in his car to pick me up. Sitting next to me, Song Shaoli held a non-alcoholic mojito, looking out at Gu Zhiyue, who was incessantly smoking. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something. I stopped her with my hand. I know what you're going to say, don't worry, I'm aware of the situation. After saying goodbye to my friends, I sat in the passenger seat of Gu Zhiyue's car. He handed me a bag. Looking down, I saw hangover soup and small cakes from my favorite dessert shop. I smiled. Gu Zhiyue, there's no need. He silently pressed the accelerator and said nothing. The ride home was quiet. At home, I threw the hangover soup and the cakes into the trash. Gu Zhiyue just stood there watching, silent till the end. I went back to my room, not wanting to deal with him. Song Shaoli, studying computer science at Tsinghua next door, had recently developed a program that could improve corporate personnel management efficiency. This was a great opportunity to start her own business. Having interned at Gu Corporation's Strategic Investment Department for nearly 3 years, I had some influence. I decided to allocate $2 million in funding for Song Shaoli to co-found a company. She would handle the technology, and I would handle the business. Lately, I'd been busy with many things. Compared to these, Gu Zhiyue really wasn't important. Unexpectedly, Zhou Shimin saw Gu Zhiyue driving me home. Having not seen Gu Zhiyue for a long time, she waited at the entrance to the villa area, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Just then, she saw me getting out of Gu Zhiyue's car. I can imagine the fear in her heart at that moment. She probably saw a flashback of a past life where Gu Zhiyue coldly told her to leave without a penny and then turned gently to put a wedding dress on me. It was her deepest nightmare. Monday morning, after meeting with prospective clients, I left the company building with documents in hand. At the stairwell, I saw a familiar figure. Zhou Shimin had lost weight. Her cheeks were slightly hollow, and her eyes were red, yet, she was still beautiful. With a small face and Barbie-like eyes, like a star torn from a magazine. Originally at the orphanage, Zhou Shimin was the prettiest child. Almost every adopting family noticed her first. If not for her pride, she would have been adopted long ago. Perhaps that's why she was particularly unwilling to accept her situation. She walked towards me and stopped right in front of me. She was wearing high heels. Standing half a head taller than me in my flat business shoes, Zhou Shiming said, I'm pregnant. And it's Gu Zhiyue's child, I replied, is that so? Then it's probably better not to wear such high heels. Zhou Shiming stared at my face, trying to detect any hint of emotional fluctuation, but she found nothing. Eventually, she broke down first. Sure Chu, what other tactics do you still have up your sleeve? How on earth are you competing with me for Gu Zhiyue? In this lifetime, he's supposed to like me, and you should be the person he dislikes the most. He shouldn't be leaving you a dime in the future. Why did I study all the ways you won his favor in the last life and follow them, yet he grows colder towards me? What tricks are you still hiding that you haven't told me? Watching Zhou Shiming collapse in tears, I sighed after a long while. Excuse me, I have another client to visit. Zhou Shiming looked up at me. Gu Shichu, you won't tell, will you? It doesn't matter. In that instant, I realized something. But it was already too late. Zhou Shiming stepped forward, hugged me tightly, and then leaned back. We both tumbled down the stairs. With a loud crash, Zhou Shiming and I landed at the bottom of the staircase. My head likely hit the railing, and all went dark before my eyes. I felt severe pain in my knee, unable to tell which leg could still move. In the darkness, I heard Zhou Shiming crying out, Zhiyue, struggling to lift my head. I vaguely made out the person standing before me, Gu Zhiyue. Blood spread out from beneath Zhou Shiming's skirt. She cried, Zhiyue, our child is gone. Your sister pushed me. She said your child would take away her share of the inheritance. Gu Zhiyue's face turned ashen. After a long moment, he bent down and picked me up. Zhou Shiming's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked mournfully at Gu Zhiyue and cried, Zhiyue. Gu Zhiyue said coldly, Zhou Shiming, you disgust me. Zhou Shiming started trembling. This was her nightmare, in the last life. Gu Zhiyue often said this to her, Zhou Shiming, you disgust me. Different choices, different processes, but why the same outcome? Zhou Shiming screamed as if mad. Why? I clearly chose correctly. Why is it always the same outcome no matter what I choose? I heard no more of what she said. The dizziness in my head grew stronger. The world gradually faded to black. In the hospital room, the faint smell of disinfectant lingered. I opened my eyes, and Gu Zhiyue sat by the bed. He spoke softly. It was Zhou Shiming who called me over, probably planning to frame you. But I arrived early, so I heard your entire conversation. Sure Chu, focus on healing, don't worry about anything else. Also, about Zhou Shiming's child, she drugged the juice she gave me. My leg was still in pain, and so was the back of my head, but I bluntly interrupted Gu Zhiyue. Excuse me, are you explaining this to me? Gu Zhiyue paused, taken aback. I pulled the blanket up a bit. If my parents hold you accountable, naturally you'll need to explain to them, but I don't see how this concerns me. Gu Zhiyue paused for a long time, then spoke softly, I want to break up with her. An awkward silence followed. I smiled, that seems even less related to me. Gu Zhiyue looked up at me anxiously, Sure Chu, do you really not understand what I mean? I watched Gu Zhiyue's eyes quietly, his gaze grew increasingly expectant. At the peak of his anticipation, I couldn't help but laugh. Of course, I understand. Gu Zhiyue, you're truly the master of infuriating people in the whole world. Gu Zhiyue's eyes dimmed instantly. After a long silence, he whispered, I know I've made many mistakes. But I'm willing to spend the rest of my life trying to earn your forgiveness. When you first came to my house, I really disliked you, but for some reason, I found myself caring more and more about you as time passed. When you threatened me in the school hallway, saying you'd drag the entire Gu family to hell with you, I wasn't even angry. On the contrary, I realized that you were nothing like I had imagined. You were strong, brave, and full of vitality. It's the kind of person I like. After confessing softly, Gu Zhiyue lowered his head and murmured, I've been having this dream lately, dreaming that I got married and you were the bride. In the dream, I held your hand and said, from now on, what's mine is yours. Sure Chu, we could be very happy. I smiled, yes, Gu Zhiyue, we could be very happy. How about this? If you drink all the water in the toilet bowl, I'll consider it. Okay. Gu Zhiyue left. He said he knew I couldn't forgive him right away, but he was willing to wait. After Gu Zhiyue left the hospital room, Song Shali, who had been waiting outside, came over to me. I glanced at her. Did you hear all that? I heard it. What do you want to say to me now? I want to ask if the client's intention this morning was indeed over 50%, and when the contract can be finalized. Unsympathetic. Shouldn't you at least ask when I will be discharged first? I already asked the doctor at the door about that. He said the day after tomorrow. I've already adjusted the subsequent work schedule based on that, with the next roadshow tentatively set for the day after tomorrow. You won't let me rest a few more days. No, I know what's most important for you. True to my partner, I am satisfied. With such an excellent business partner, how can I not be wealthy and successful? After the roadshow, I took a day off to visit Zhou Sherman in the hospital. She had lost her child and lay on the hospital bed, looking wan and thin. Gu Zhiyue had already broken up with her. During her hospitalization, Zhou's parents hadn't visited her even once. The only visitors she had were unexpected, the orphanage director and a few friends, also orphans. Chu helped us reimburse the travel expenses. Over the years, she has been donating money to us. Thanks to her, Xiao Duo and Lily's conditions have significantly improved, the director said. Zhou Sherman was stunned. Most children in the orphanage find it hard to be adopted. They are abandoned, some due to physical disabilities, others due to intellectual challenges, and some due to terminal illnesses. Compared to that, Zhou Sherman and I, healthy and attractive, were truly the lucky ones among the lucky. Initially, the director told us that we were one big family, all the children were brothers and sisters. But after leaving the orphanage, Sherman never thought of her siblings again. On the other hand, in my previous life, I often returned to volunteer. In this life, after entering the Gu family, I made substantial donations as well, seeking treatment and pathways for disabled children. Watching these children stutteringly discuss Sister Chu in front of her, Zhou Sherman suddenly burst into tears. She cried for a long time, so long that the orphanage director came with the children to say goodbye to her, and I approached her, unnoticed. I calmly waited for her to finish crying. After a while, Zhou Sherman, covering her face with her hands, said softly, "Do you hate me?" Before I could answer, she quickly said, "I hate you too. I just wanted a better life. What did I do wrong?" I thought for a moment. Nothing. It's just that you chose the wrong way. Sherman looked at me. Are you saying I'm not as kind as you, not as innocent, not as loving? I shook my head. Not at all. Sherman, your biggest mistake is that in both your past and present life, you always aim to take other people's cake. But why should others let you have their cake? Even if they did, how would you know if it's poisoned? The right way is to make your own cake. Zhou Sherman cried out. What right do you have to judge me? Don't you also want a share of the Gu family's wealth? I shook my head. I don't. The 2 million I took from the Gu family has been fully returned with interest after the profits from my company with Song Shali. As for the clothes and jewelry Mrs. Gu gave me, the valuable ones are all sealed in a safe. With a list made, I hope to completely sever ties with the Gu family in the future. The reason is simple. The Gu family made their fortune in real estate, and in the process of land acquisition and building over the past 30 years, there have been accidents and deaths, and countless underhanded dealings. Gu's father has his ways to suppress these issues now, but they can't be suppressed forever. Holding on to this blood-stained, dirty money is bound to lead to disaster, and when the time comes, everyone associated with the Gu group will be imprisoned. Zhou Sherman couldn't grasp all this. She just stared blankly at me. Finally, she whispered, "In 2 lifetimes, I have lost to you." I gently shook my head and then leaned closer to her. This was my purpose for coming. I had something to say to Zhou Sherman. Sherman, in 2 lifetimes, you have been after me, as if I am your greatest enemy. But tell me, in these 2 lives, is it really me who has ruined you? It was as if lightning had struck Zhou Sherman. She trembled violently.